Hi, hello, it's me, Eva. Today we're playing, I can't say the name of the deck, but it's Turbo and then the forbidden word that I can't say because then the video gets suppressed. This is the third match. Match 1 and 2 you can find in the description. You can also find the deck list if you want it. I've gotten myself a good cup of coffee, my favorite chair, and I'm gonna lean back and I'm gonna play every card I know that prevents combat damage. If only those cards had like a name they were called, you know, that I could say on YouTube. Maybe I should just, bleep it. Maybe that's more fun. I'm playing
Extreme Mist.
We're also playing against Devin today. You know who Devin is? You don't know who Devin is. I haven't told you. He's amazing. It's every tournament I'm playing a new deck and Devin's playing the same deck. At least almost the same deck, you know? Let's look at the hand. So they always tell you need at least 3 lands and never keep a 1-lander. But I feel like I can break this rule, you know? I have 2 preordains to dig for a land. I have to find something 6 feet deep, and even if I don't find the second land, I have Lorien revealed, so I can always island cycle. We also have a Tangle to survive, and Arcane Denial and a Weather the Storm is a cool little combo we'll talk about later. Are you ready for the first game? I'm not. I really need a win this time. I can't go 0-4 in any tournament. That will make me cry. As always, I win the die roll. I start with a tap land that gain 1 life, and I go to 21. Now, the dice we rolled fell off the side of the camera view, so I can't actually prove to you that I won the die roll, but trust me, I did. My opponent plays a tapped artifact land that taps for blue and black and is indestructible. For my second turn, I play a Preordain, scrying 2, drawing 1, because I need to improve my hand, find my fox, find my draw spells, and then I have everything I need soon, hopefully. Devin's version of Affinity runs a lot of creatures like Myr Enforcer, Refurbished Familiar, but I'm not that scared of those, I can fog them. However, there's probably 4 Galvanic Blasts in there, and that's 16 points of burn damage that I need to find a way around. For my second turn, I played a Simic Growth Chamber, returned my land to my hand. My opponent played a Seed of the Synod, an artifact land, and then a Kyrian Relic that draws a card when it enters or it leaves. My turn 3, I replay my tap land and gains a life, and I'm up to 22, which puts me further away from the Galvanic Blasts killing me. Devin has even more Kyrian Relics, and the great thing about them is they're both artifacts and draws cards, so at this point he has 5 artifacts in play, where 3 of them taps for mana. So with Affinity for artifacts, he has a lot of cost reduction and a lot of mana. I play a Frantic Inventory, draw 1 card off of it, because I don't have any others in the graveyard. But now it's set up so I have a 2 mana instant spell that draws 2 next time, which is really nice. So far, we've both just done a bunch of setup, and it's about who gets the bigger payouts out of those setups right now. Affinity can go very aggressively if it gets a really powerful start and uses the reduced cost to play a bunch of creatures really fast. But Devin seems to be currently just assembling value, which gives me time to construct the hands I need to have all the Fox and Moments pieces, and possibly some Arcane Denials if there is enough burn in the deck to kill me. Or maybe even Weather the Storm. Having cast and recast my lands that gain life, I'm all the way up to 23 before Devin has a creature in play, and I have 7 cards in hand. Everything feels good. Everything is nice and slow so far. Of course, the thing about the Affinity deck is the moment it hits 7 artifacts is the moment you have to pray and hold on to your hats, because maybe a bunch of Myr Enforcers hit the board, maybe a bunch of them get sacrificed to draw and gain life, but we're gonna see how bad it goes. That's a Chromatic Star, that's a total of 7 artifacts. That means that Myr Enforcer is free, I let it resolve, and I hope there aren't too many more. But even if there are, how do they get through a fog? I think they don't. My opponent didn't have more, and here's the counterplay to it. Weather the Storm puts me up to 32. When your spells are free, you can cast a lot of them in 1 turn. To be fair, my opponent didn't cast that many. If I had another Myr Enforcer, I would be like at 35, but 32 is a solid life total to be at right now. It's also good because I used my opponent's spells to do the storm instead of using my own. which is the way to do it with Weather the Storm often, especially against burn decks or decks that play really fast. We saw it last time where it didn't work. For my turn, I'll play a land and I'll pass the turn, because that's what Turbo Fog do. Before his turn, Devin plays a Fanatical Offering, sacrificing an artifact to draw 2. I have to consider whether I want to let that happen, and I'm fine with Devin drawing a bunch of cards. He sacrifices one of the Kyrogen relics. When it leaves, he draws another card, meaning he will draw a total of 3 cards before it's his turn, and the 4th one for his turn. So now he should be loaded up with everything he can need to fight back against the Fogs. He plays another Myr Enforcer, representing 8 damage a turn, which is a lot. And then he plays a Hunter's Blowgun. Hunter's Blowgun is used with Clark Clan Shaman to give it Death Touch, and that way you can deal 1 damage to all of your opponent's creatures, and all your own creatures too, technically, by sacrifice 1 artifact, and then the Death Touch will kill everything. It's not very good in this matchup, because I will just not have any creatures. Devin attacks for 4, I decide it's not worth using a Fog for just 4 damage, and I'll go down to 28, because the only thing I have to worry about is whether I can be killed by 4 Galvanic Blasts. I am very certain Devin's list does not play more burn than that. So as long as I have more than 16 life, I'm actually very happy about my situation. For my turn, I'll play a land, pass the turn. If you haven't picked up, then what you do with Turbo Fog is basically land go. Land go. I love doing land go. At the end of my turn, Devin played a Toxic Analysis. It doesn't do much, but it does give you a clue, which you can then crack to draw an additional card. He attacks for 8, and I don't want to go down to 20, so I'll do the first of my many Fogs. This one is my Spider-Man Tangle. So those 2 Myr Enforcers, they won't untap during Devin's untap step. Then Devin plays another Myr Enforcer, and this one looks different than the others, but it is the same card, trust me. It's just mismatched. So all my islands and people make fun of me for it. Devin then plays a Chromatic Star, passes the turn, and I do another Weather the Storm, because I don't like being all the way down to like 28. So let's see how high my life total go. Let's see if you can math it out before I do. Ha! I tricked you! I will Arcane Denial one of my own Weather the Storms. When you counter your own spell with Arcane Denial, you get all the draws. You get the draws from the Arcane Denial. You get the draws that the spell's controller would get. So that's 3 draws in my upkeep, and then another draw in my draw step. And suddenly, I'm the one who's loaded up on cards. And I love it! Weather the Storm plus Arcane Denial is one of those things that makes me happy to do. I then play a land that gains a life, and I'm all the way up to 38 with a stacked hand. Now I just have to get enough mana that a Stream of Thought can win this game, and I have plenty of time to do it. Devin starts sacrificing all the Chromatic Stars to draw more cards. He needs to dig deep to find a way to either have enough damage to actually pose a threat and a way to stop every Fog in my deck. The 2 Myr Enforcers do not untap, so there's only 4 damage on the board this time. And then this is a Kenku Artificers, which can turn a non-creature artifact into a creature artifact and put 3/3 counters on it. You choose your indestructible lands to get indestructible flying 3/3 creatures, and then attacks for 7, bringing me down to 31, as I didn't feel like using a Fog for just 7 damage. Devin then uses a Refurbished Familiar, and this is how he can get back into this game, by making me discard my entire hand. He has a Blood Fountain in play, which for 4 mana can bring creatures back from the graveyard. The only problem is I'm not killing any of his creatures, so he'll need to find a way to get that Refurbished Familiar into the graveyard, back into his hand, play it again, and preferably have 1 more of them, and that way attack my hand and get all the draw spells and Fogs out of it. On the other hand, I just played a Beholder Multiverse, so I have refilled my hand once more. And I play a land and pass the turn. I'm still just waiting to make sure I have enough mana that a Stream of Thought can potentially finish the game. Until then, I just have to sit tight, do Fogs, and draw cards. You can see me counting out my mana, making sure that this Stream of Thought actually does something. And since I'm not even close, I'll play a Lauren Reveal and draw 3 more cards. Because if I get more than 7 cards in my hand, I don't even mind discarding some of them, as they have flashback, or they are simply unnecessary to have like 4 Fogs in one hand. The Affinity deck is extremely resilient and has a very good game plan, and it's a very tight machine that does exactly what it's made to do. However, it's made to survive removal spells, bring creatures back very cheaply, and apply a lot of pressure. All of this is exactly what Turbo Fog plays around. It wants you to just attack with creatures. It wants you to want me to remove your creatures. And then I'm just playing a completely different game. So this seems to be a very good matchup for me. Unless Devin has some sort of counter spells that can counter multiple fogs a turn. Now, Devin attacks with everything. When you're playing against Turbo Fog, you have to consider what fog you're running into. This time it's Moment's Peace, which can be cast from the graveyard. But if it's a Tangle you think you're running into, you might want to attack with less damage. That way you still have creatures to attack with next turn. If you have no creatures next turn, then my next turn, I don't even have to fog you. I do really like my board state. It is just a whole bunch of lands, but look how messed up they are. They're just all over the place. You play no permanent spells in this deck. I foretell a card, and then I start rearranging my lands just so they can look a little neater on my side of the board. Devin's board makes a lot more sense. Lands in the back, artifacts in the middle, and then all the creatures up on the front. And after I've neatly rearranged my lands, it looks a lot prettier, I have to say. This is one of the things I can do while playing Turbo Fog, is a Zen garden for my board state. I should probably even make it even prettier. And I think the best way to do that is just get the forest to look more neat, get more of the same forest. I think Devin's attacking with everything, and that does make me have to flash back a card from my graveyard, which was another fog. And then I play a frantic inventory that draws 2 cards to replace the card I used to prevent all the damage. Now I want to talk a little bit more about my board state. Look, I managed to tap all the lands, and I think that Spider-Man forest is very, very ugly now looking at it here in the camera. Maybe if I'm going to play this deck again, I will make sure all the forests look at least a little bit alike, so we have something nice to look at. This is what happens when you are in a winning game with Turbo Fog. The turns become very, very much alike. You ask how many cards your opponent have left in library, and you start thinking, oh, every turn is just me playing a land, playing a fog, and waiting till I have enough mana to play a Stream of Thought. And then you realize maybe this isn't enough mana to play a Stream of Thought, because this is the scary moment. I need to tap all my mana to mill Devin out, but at that point, it's not actually enough to mill him out, and I need to keep enough mana open to play a fog still. I decide that Devin plays no counter spells at all, and I play this Stream of Thought. And then I keep 1 mana open for a basic fog. This is very risky, because if Devin plays something like counter spell, Metallic Rebuke, or anything, and can counter my 1 fog, suddenly all that damage on Devin's side of the board is just let through. And that's a lot of damage. And then if he has, let's say 2-3 Galvanic Blasts in his hand, I'm suddenly actually in trouble instead of being winning. But I know most Grixis deck don't actually play Metallic Rebuke in main board. For my turn, I play the fog in Devin's upkeep before he draws to make sure there's a smaller chance he has a counterspell. Because if the counterspell was on top of his deck, then playing it in when he attacks would have allowed him an extra draw. Devin brought back 2 cards from his graveyard to his hand that he had put in there himself, and I have to discard another card to a refurbished familiar. I think one of the ways to win this matchup in the first round is to get those refurbished familiars into play, somehow sacrifice them, get them back into your hand and play them again before I can establish this kind of, I don't want to say control, but like serene board state of peace and harmony. For my turn, I will play a land and gain a life. I'm now at 32. I'm staring down a literal army of 4/4s, 2/1 flyers, indestructible lands. But I'm okay. I'm enjoying myself. And I choose to simply discard to hand size. I get rid of a bunch of lands in my hand that I don't need anymore. Because, I have enough mana that all I need now is to draw my second Stream of Thought, and then the game is over. Devin attacks with everything. I think that one mismatch reinforces the general of his army. And I play a fog, making sure I do not take any damage. and a growth spiral to put this Bayuga Bog into play at instant speed, exiling Devin's graveyard. Not that it really does anything, but it makes sure I have another mana. And for my turn, I draw a bunch of cards with a frantic inventory, play a land, pass the turn, and now my hand is once more full of fogs and draw spells. Apparently for that turn I also started out by playing an island for turn, and then later in the turn playing a Simic Growth Chamber. That was an accident, I didn't mean to play 2 lands for turn, but I'm glad I caught it in the recording at least. That is embarrassing to do on camera. I think it was the Simic Growth Chamber with the Bayuga Bog that confused me, and accidentally I played too many lands. I didn't mean to do it. Devin, for his turn, attacks with everything. I flash back my fog effect. I draw a card for my turn, looking for another stream of thoughts. Then I do my hand split technique to see if both hands have 3 and 4 cards. And I see I have a card too many, so for my end step, I discard a Moment's Peace. That's the flashback spell that's a fog. Devin attacks with everything, and I decide I would rather cast Tangle from my hand, so none of his creatures untap, than use the fog in my graveyard. And maybe if Devin has like a Bayuga Bog, that would be the wrong play, but I'm okay. For Devin's turn, he draws a card, passes, because there's not a whole lot he can do. For my turn, I play Weather the Storm, then I play Weather the Storm, then I play an Arcane Denial on the copy of Weather the Storm. And then I play Arcane Denial on Weather the Storm. This allows me to draw 7 cards at the beginning of my next upkeep. Now I could have done this better by playing Weather the Storm, then Arcane Denying it, then playing Weather the Storm, and then Arcane Denying one of the copies. That way I would gain 3 more lives than I did, and it could have been at 38 instead of 35. I draw 6 extra cards in my upkeep, and then I draw a card for my turn. And I find my stream of thought among all of these cards, so I tap 1 blue for the cost, and then I start replicating it while I have Devin count out how many cards are left in his library, so I know how many times I need to replicate it. I can replicate it 3 times, and Devin conceded. Game 1 went exactly how I wanted it to. Devin built up a massive board of artifact creatures, and fuck. Can I say that now? I think I can say that this late into the video. Absolutely saved the day for me while we just kept drawing cards until we got the stream of thought. You were there, you saw it. I don't know why I'm re-explaining it. I bet my opponent's gonna sideboard a whole bunch of ways to discard or counter my fog spells. But what I can do is change my strategy entirely. I'm gonna bring in 3 Murmuring Mystics, because if my opponent takes out all his removal, he can't get rid of the Murmuring Mystics, and all those fogs and draw spells just gives me a bunch of 1/1s. I'll take out Behold the Multiverse and put in Deep Analysis, because I think he'll bring in discard, and if he discards Deep Analysis, well, I can play it from the graveyard. Out goes Impulse, because Impulse always goes out. I play too many fogs, so 1 fog goes out. And Weather the Storm, I don't need 4, right? This is my opponent's sideboard. The out makes a lot of sense. A bunch of Kark Clan Shamans, they do nothing. Cast Down also goes out. I had no creatures, so that makes sense. Now I have Murmuring Mystic. In goes all the kind of disruption I was afraid of. Metallic Rebuke to stop my fogs. Red Elemental Blaze to stop my fogs. I like my head a lot. It's lands and spells. Everything you need. And even the spells are good. I got draw spells. I got ways to prevent combat damage. I've got to Weather the Storm in case anything actually goes bad. So let's keep this and just have another win quick. Now, when I say win quick, we saw how the last game goes. It's not that my turns are long, it's just that I need a lot of them. We both start out with a tapped land that adds 2 different colored mana. For Devin's second turn, he does an Echo Wellspring, drawing a card, and now he has 3 artifacts in play, and I'm still at 1 land. But I'm feeling extremely confident, because I don't think Devin's deck is very good at handling the strategy I'm presenting. Unlike the 2 last matchup that had win conditions that had nothing to do with attacking, this one seems entirely reliant on it and wants to like fight for the board, which is really funny when I have no boards other than my lands, of course, which can't be destroyed because they're not artifacts. This is the start of my villain arc, my confident power. Oh, that is a refurbished Familiar making me discard a card. I'm very glad I put these Deep Analysis into my sideboard, meaning that, you know, they have flashbacks. So basically it helps me draw cards faster. even though it does cost life to use the deep analysis from the graveyard, but I'm still only at 20 because I've played no Weather the Storms. And now Devin is presenting 2 damage a turn, which could quickly add up to 5 damage, and then I'm in range of all the Galvanic Blast, which is a consideration because if I can't deny anything, I'm helping Devin draw. It's not unlikely he would see all his Galvanic Blast in one game. In the end of my, there's a growth spiral putting a Simic growth chamber into play. For my turn, I play a forest. Growth, growth, growth. Growth, growth, growth. It's really hard to say all the time and keep it straight. This is an important turn for Devin, because there's likely a Weather Storm in my hand, and he's at 7 artifacts now, so all his Muir Enforcers are free. So how many do you play in a turn? Devin carefully plays a single 1, attacks for 2, bringing me down to 18, and then sacrifices his Chromatic Star to draw a card. But the question is, do you dare play more spells in fear of my Weather the Storm? I only had 1 mana up, I think, so if he had more Muir Enforcers, he probably would have played them. So I'm thinking I'm safe for now. I play my land, and you'll never guess what, I pass the turn. Now I'm keeping 5 mana open to deal with whatever Devin plays. As long as it's creatures, I don't care. And as long as it's Kyrogen Relic that just draws more cards, I also don't care much. I'm only afraid of discard spells, burn, and counter spells. And I'm not expecting a whole lot of counter spells if I have to be honest, even though, as we saw on the sideboard, Devin has actually put some in. They just don't work on Tangle because they're Red Elemental Blasts, so I can easily fog this turn, play a Simic Growth Chamber, play a Simic Growth Spiral, and put a Simic Growth Chamber into play. See? It's not easy. For my turn, since I have sorceries, I need to play them on my turn, so I'm playing a Deep Analysis. This will cost me 3 life. I go down to 15, and I also have a Preordain in my hand that I follow up with, and that way I can hopefully shake my hand well enough that I have enough fogs and draw spells in the future, and won't miss any land drops, because that's 5 cards deep I've looked to shape my hand the best way possible. And the good thing is, since I played a Tangle, neither of those creatures will untap. Before the end of my turn, Devin cracks a Kyrogen Relic, drawing another card. He untaps his creature, so I kindly remind him to not do that. You're not allowed to do that, Devin. To be fair, it's not often you play against Tangle, so I think it just slips his mind. I think it slipped a couple of my opponent's minds. It also slipped my mind a couple of times, actually. First turn, Devin sacrifices one of his artifacts using a Fanatical Offering, drawing a bunch of cards and making a map token. All of this is fine by me. My only fear is that Devin somehow has 4 Galvanic Blast, but even if he does, he doesn't have the 4 red mana to cast them all right now. Instead, he casts another Eco Wellspring, and that's fine by me. Draw as many cards as you like, play as many creatures as you like, and I'm happy. And then, at the end of Devin's turn, after he's cast all those spells, I have an opening to cast good old... You know what it is? It's Weather the Storm. Now, I can't actually remember how many spells were cast, and I even do an Arcane Denial to make the math more confusing. And now me and Devin both have to count how many spells were cast this turn. My notes in my notebook says that I'm supposed to go up to 21 now. So that means I'm probably gaining a total of 6 life from this, meaning 5 spells were cast because I counted one of them. Excellent. Taking notes is very important if you're making videos. It's also very important if you play in any sort of like high stakes tournament, because actually dice aren't allowed to be keeping life because people keep accidentally knocking them over and then setting their life total back to, the wrong value. Anyways, my turn, you'll never guess what. Land, but I don't just go. I also have a Preordain to play. And now I have to keep my brain in check because I get kind of confused. I play my land right away and then I got confused about whether I have played a land. And you can see me checking my hand size. I do the good old 4-3 split with my hands to see if I have 7 cards. Because I do, I pass the turn. The weird thing is, if I had 8, all I could choose between was throwing a fog away or playing a draw spell, and I don't really want to do either if I have 7 cards in hand. So sometimes I just have to discard to hand size. Devin goes ahead and plays more little 2-mana rocks that draws cards, which is the backbone of Pauper. Play rock, sacrifice rock, draw more than Ancestral Recall. Is this still Vision? I forget which is which. I know they do the same thing though. Just one is good, the other one is ridiculous. My opponent for his turn plays a Vault of Whispers into a Duress, and Duress is very good against me. It's a way to get rid of some of the fox in my hand and eventually have a way to kill me. I decide I just want to show my opponent my hand because it's really funny. I have 2 flashback spells that functions as a fog, 2 Simic, 2 growth spirals, and another flashback spell in Deep Analysis. So discarding against me doesn't do a whole lot right now. I choose to use the Moment's Peace that got discarded because I don't want to risk my graveyard being exiled. I don't want to risk going low enough that Galvanic Blast starts being a threat. And then I play a Growth Spiral, drawing a card and putting a land into play that gains a life. And I'm now at 22. It's my turn. I untap everything. I play a land. I check if I have any sorceries. And I do have one. It's good old Deep Analysis played from the hand. My opponent then decides that this is the thing to Red Elemental Blast, which is kind of awkward. I do cast it from my graveyard afterwards, but I think the Blue Blast should be saved for me countering a counterspell. But this is why Red Elemental Blast isn't that good against Turbo Fog. It doesn't stop Weather the Storm and it doesn't stop Moment's Peace. However, stopping my draw spells is a good idea because I need them to keep my hand full of all those spells, because a lot of them just, go negative in card advantage. All those lands that gain 1 life are really useful. They help me pay for the flashback cost of my Deep Analysis, so now I'm still at 20. If I had those lands, I forget what they're called, Radiant Spring Fountain, I would gain 2 life whenever I played those, and returning them with Simic Growth Chamber, they would have gained me twice as much life, So I think those are very good to have in the deck, if not in the sideboard at least. Right now is when Devin needs to find a few more discard spells or a few more counter spells to make sure I don't play draw spells that draw a bunch. He cracks a Pyrogen Relic to draw another card. He gets another Enforcer that he can then play and then attack. For 8, I go down to 12. And now I'm actually within burn reach if he has all 4 Galvanic Blasts. He doesn't play any right now, but I do have to keep in my mind that I could be burned out right now. For my turn, I play Murmuring Mystic. This is a 1/5 that for 4 mana. Whenever I cast an instant or sorcery, I get a 1/1 Illusion Bird token. This is a very powerful card, and I assume that Devin has sideboarded out all his hard removal, so this thing is going to stick around and giving me birds whenever I play a draw spell, or a fog for that matter. And now Devin is suddenly the one being attacked. Well, soon anyway. He did actually find more discard spells, and for a single mana he can play another Refurbished Familiar. Now, I did double check that this is a Refurbished Familiar because you will see it be placed outside of the camera view, as apparently I haven't placed the camera perfectly to capture the entire mat, and that's a little annoying. I need to work a little bit on my camera placement. There's a 2/1 flying red down there below the Muren Forces, and I have to discard a card. I discard a Weather the Storm because I have 2 in hand, but if you noticed, Devin played another Refurbished Familiar, making me discard again. I have to play this Frantic Inventory to draw a single card. I get this Arcane Denial off the top to counter it, so suddenly I still have cards in hand. If that had resolved, I would have had to discard my last fog, and I would be in terrible trouble. This is also when Arcane Denial shows how good it is in this deck. Even though it lets Devin draw 2 cards, it lets me draw a replacement card for my Arcane Denial, which can help me find more fogs or draw spells. Devin then attacks with everything, and I play a Moment's Peace. In all of this spell slinging, I've also made a couple of birds. Devin then counters my 1 fog spell, which is terrifying. However, I still make a bird from the fog I cast, which gives me a 3rd bird. And other than playing fogs, I can now also block. So I block all of Devin's creatures, all my birds die, and I live this turn, which I'm very happy about. The Murmuring Mystic also helps block. It's a 1/5, so it can block a Myr Enforcer for days. And it was very lucky. If I had not had that Murmuring Mystic and I had not made a couple of birds, I would be dead right now. But I do have to top deck some sort of draw spell or anything that can keep me in the game. I get another Murmuring Mystic. That means I can block out 2 of the Myr Enforcers, and if I have another spell, I can even start making more birds to block the rest of the attackers. The birds are flying, so they can even block the refurbished familiars, especially the one that doesn't have +1/+1 counters on it. The one in the top got +1/+1 counters for maps being cracked on it. Devin has a Reckoner's Bargain. You sacrifice an artifact or creature and gain life equal to its casting cost and then draw 2. But he has to sacrifice his lands rather than his big creatures, because the life gain is pretty meaningless here, and the draws is what he needs, and he needs his creatures in play to threaten me with. But he also gets the Thoughtcast, which is an affinity spell for 5 mana that draws 2. So it costs 1 in Devin's deck, and now his hand is fully stacked up again against my 1 card. Devin keeps going and plays a Blood Fountain, giving him another Blood Clue token thingy. I can't remember to say it right. But thanks to all the spells he just cast, this Weather the Storm is massive for me. It also gives me 2 birds because it triggers on both the Murmuring Mystics. And Devin played 8 spells, well 7. I have a storm count of 8 when I played, so I go all the way up to 36, and I can block everything. I lose both my birds, but the Murmuring Mystics are big enough that they stay alive. Now, I have all this mana, and I have a land that for 4 mana and tap can scry 1. I look at the top deck, it's a land, I put it on the bottom. I need something that draws card, or I need fogs. I need some way to stay alive here, because it is very scary. I start in the upkeep by playing a fog, because I've learned that now Devin plays counterspells, so I don't want to give him a chance to draw it, and that makes me 2 birds, and I should be safe for this turn, especially because I don't think Devin can do quite 36 damage in a single turn. He does attack with everything, I remind him of the fog, and he doesn't attack with anything, since it doesn't actually matter this turn. He doesn't have to pull a fog out of my hand, because I already cast it to avoid a counterspell. And now we have all the Myr Enforcers in play again. He uses his blood token from before to discard a land from his hand to draw a card, and we here with the camera could see 2 of the Galvanic Blasts in hand, and I use my Scry land once again to try and find something that can make me live. I'm a little terrified of all the damage he's presenting, and I am drawing 1 card a turn right now, and I still need to find a way to win as well. I don't play a land, which is uncommon for this deck, and then I pass the turn. Devin attacks with everything, and I have a Tangle, the good old Spider-Man one. It gives me 2 birds, prevents all combat damage, and taps all of Devin's creatures. This is one of those turns where perhaps you shouldn't have attacked with everything, just so next turn I don't have an entirely safe turn. But it's really hard again to play around a Turbo Fog, around which fog is it this time. There's also a fog called Respite that gives you 1 life for each attacking creatures. And if you're up against that one, you really have to start thinking, which fog does my opponent have? I finally find some draw spells in Frantic Inventory, and when I start casting draw spells, those draw spells give me not just more spells, but also more birds, and then the more spells become more birds, and I'm already all the way up to 8 birds. I attacked Devin for 4, bringing him down to 16. This was the first time he lost life, and the first time in this whole tournament I've attacked. Now Devin sacrifices one of the refurbished familiars to draw 2 cards, gains 4 lives, goes back up to 20. Thanks to all my draw spells, I now have 4 birds and 4 cards in hands, and I feel like suddenly I'm the aggressor here, the one who should be feared, the one with the army. Devin untaps his entire board, and I remind him that the Spider-Man Tangle makes sure they stay tapped. This is very nice, because then I have extra mana this turn to just cast instant spells that aren't fogs, and I can build up my hand, build up my board, and start swinging for a whole bunch of damage. Devin brings back both the refurbished familiars from his graveyards and starts playing them, and I have to discard both a Moment's Peace and a Laureate Reveal, which does feel bad, because the Lorien Reveal is another draw 3. But if you see me discard Lorien Reveal here, you have to start thinking, well, then what does she have? I scry 1 with my land to make sure I don't get a dead draw, and that scry land has really saved me this game, I must say. And the spell I had was of course Lorien Revealed. I gain another 2 birds, and I draw 3 cards off of Lorien Revealed. This is such a nice card. This is why Lorien Revealed is so good. It fixes your mana in the early game, and in the late game it just wins you the game by outvaluing any card your opponent has. It's a 5 mana sorcery, so it is expensive and it's not broken, but the fact that it can both fix mana, because you can play Island Forest, so it can even fix green, and draw this many cards, it's kind of a little bit ridiculous. While I was gushing over Lorien Reveal, you can see my dice are tapped. Those are my 8 birds that have attacked, putting Devin down to 12. For Devin's turn, I once again decide that I want to cast the Moment's Peace in his upkeep to remove anything he could have at instant speed that could either exile my graveyard or could possibly be a counter spell from the top of the deck. So this turn there's no reason for Devin to attack. And you can see I keep my untapped bird on the right side of the Murmuring Mystics. I should really invest in some tokens for this deck rather than using dice. It is kind of confusing as I can see it right now. My opponent plays a Blood Fountain, getting a 2 blood token, and then also when he sacrifices he can bring 2 creatures back from his graveyard. Then he passes the turn, since attacking doesn't matter, and I attack him with 12 1/1 flying birds. So he has to start blocking with the Refurbished Familiars. He has 3 of them though, so he takes 9 damage. I lose 3 birds and he goes down to 3 life. And suddenly he's very pressured on life. 2 of the Refurbished Familiar, however, dies. So that Blood Fountain can't bring them back. And suddenly I'll have like no cards left. That doesn't really matter much because I have a Fog with Flashback in the graveyard, Moment's Peace. So I don't really need the cards in my hand. I ask my opponent how many cards are left in his library, because I could also mill him out if I have a Stream of Thought. And suddenly there's a lot of things my opponent has to consider. I play another Lorien Reveal, drawing 3 cards. So even if all those Refurbished Familiars come back and are played, I will still have cards in hand. I probably shouldn't have. I play that land. There's an argument for not playing it because you could try to win with just the tokens and then discard it to the Refurbished Familiars is likely coming down. However, I want to play the land just in case I need to win with a Stream of Thought in my hand, which is much more unlikely. For Devin's turn, he sacrifices the Blood Fountain, return both the Refurbished Familiars from his graveyard to his hand. He can also cast both of them because they only cost 1 mana because of the Affinity for artifacts. When it comes into play, I discard a Lorien Revealed, and then he plays the second one, and I discard a Arcane Denial. I actually play it countering the Refurbished Familiar, because that gives me another, not so much because I'm afraid of it, but more so because it gives me another couple of birds that I can win the game with. He can also choose to draw 2 more cards in the next upkeep, which would be a way to get him milled faster. So it's very interesting to see, how will I win? Will I mill my opponent out or will I attack him with birds? I almost dropped this Tankle into my lap and then I play it. Do not drop cards into your lap, it looks very bad to take a card from your lap and play it. Then for my turn I attack with all my birds and my opponent simply dies. So it was the perfect plan. This is what Turbo Fuck is about. Unconventional strategy for game 1. Slam those Murmuring Mystics and make all the birds in the world. There's a song about like the bird being the word or something I want to use here, but I'm not gonna. It feels really good to get a win under my wings. That's 2-1 for the... That's 1-2. That's 1-2 for the tournament. If I can win the last one, at least I'm breaking even. After playing these games with Turbo Fox, something has dawned on me. This deck is very matchup dependent. If your opponent has no way to kill you other than combat damage, you're pretty sure to win. If your opponent has other ways than combat damage to finish you off, you're gonna have an uphill battle. Like, subscribe if you want to see how it does in the end. I see you later. Have a good time. Bye. I like my chair.